Thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely story. I'm not quite sure I'm the hummingbird, but I would like to imagine I am. Yeah, but, well, anyway, I think all of us woke up this morning with the story of the passing of Nelson Mandela. And, but much as we feel sad, we're also encouraged and blessed that such a person lived during our lifetime. And to be truthful, not many of us can be of that stature, but many of us can make a difference. And I will try to encourage you to think big through doing small things to make a difference. You might think I'm completely crazy. You might be right. But I think what I'll do is, after discussing with Sajita, the best way to go around is to talk about myself. Not because it's anything exciting, but you'll know where I come from, and then hopefully this will encourage you, because many of you are better off than me. I come from parents who met in a Japanese prison. My father opposed the Japanese invasion of China and was hounded out of China and fled to Singapore. My mother was the only child of the second wife of my grandfather. My grandfather had 3 wives, and he is, well, I don't know how to describe it. He was a wonderful grandfather to me, but he's certainly traditional. He believed that women should be educated, made them bad wives. And when my mother insisted on education, my grandfather said, no way. But my mother took herself to school, sat outside the school, and refused to be given a go away until they admitted her. So she got herself an education. In her late teens, the Japanese also invaded Southeast Asia. So my mother organized trade unions, organized women in factories, including sex workers, into groups to oppose Japanese occupation of Singapore and Malaya. Of course, she was arrested too, and they met in prison. They didn't die, and that's how I'm here. And I think my mother was a feminist in many ways. My father is even a greater feminist. You might not believe it. I found this out because my father decided to form an ex-detainees association, and he campaigned for my mother to be president and campaigned for himself to be secretary, so they can do all the work. Okay? So that's how I came to be. All right. So I grew up in Singapore, went to medical school, and around the time we read all the history of how the social reforms in the medical world was undertaken by public health doctors, community doctors, reformers, industrial doctors, and so on. So I wanted to be a public health doctor, a community medicine person, because you make big differences, okay? So you don't set a single fracture, look after a single patient, you change policy, and through that policy, you control TB, you vaccinate populations, and so on. Wow. So that's what I wanted to do. So I came out of medical school, did occupational medicine, and very soon I fell into trouble because I haven't got the self-control not to do things when I can't do it. So I started organizing many, many things, and my seniors got threatened because they thought that I would really subvert the industrial workers of Singapore. That time, Singapore was rapidly industrializing, and nobody should go around preaching, about industrial health and so on. Our government believed that a docile and tame workforce is the best for multinational investment. So although I came away with a gold medal, I was jobless. So community medicine with politics is not for me. So what to do then? Okay, go back to clinical medicine, 1-to-1, all right? You have a patient, you stitch up a wound, right? You set a fracture, you give antibiotics. I thought I was far away from politics. I was far away from the politics of, unequal distribution of wealth equals unequal distribution of health and so on. Far, far away from it. But I was really stupid because health is a human rights issue. Totally a human rights issue. And now many, many years later, I can tell you about it. So to start with, I wanted to be a surgeon. Getting the exams are not a problem, but I married a man who would marry a woman surgeon. He's got the guts, because, very few men want to marry a woman surgeon, because if you have a row, she might wake up in the middle of the night. And it will be disaster, okay? But he was a human rights lawyer, so he's got no fear. Okay? So he married me, and very soon he fell foul of the law, because he defended many political opponents of the government, and he was hounded out of Singapore and became a refugee here. And I joined him as a wife of a refugee. So that was many years ago. I came here, I joined the NHS, but still being naive and idealistic, I wanted to do orthopedic surgery, and I don't see what's wrong with it. I can sew, I can cook, I can make furniture. So orthopedic surgery is a combination of all these skills. I passed my exam, but I didn't realize that it is one of the last bastions of male chauvinism, in this country at least, and I think it's all over the world. So it took me a long time and so on. I just have to say a little bit of that, because I'm sure in your own careers, you face a lot of heartaches, right? But I'm just going to tell you, don't give up. If a tiny woman, a refugee, came to this country under these circumstances, can actually make it to be a consultant orthopedic surgeon, you can always do what you want to do, and only you can ask yourself to give up. Nobody else can. So fast forward, all right? 1982, I got my FRCS, Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons. That day when I qualified, I was the only woman, needless to say, In fact, through the whole week, I was the only woman. And I was working in St. Thomas's Hospital, not far away, and it was June, and when I went home, I switched on the television and I saw a terrible war going on. And I was shocked how devastating is war. Because, you hear of bombing. Of course, in your lifetime, you hear of how Iraq was bombed, and we just, through the action of our parliamentarians, have stopped airstrikes in Syria, right? And many of you can remember Kaslet in Gaza, Grapes of Wrath in Lebanon, where bombs were just dropped indiscriminately. And many, many people were killed. And so I was watching this, 1982, I think most of you not born. Huh? Anybody born before 1982 here? No, okay. Oh, wow, okay, right. I got company, okay? So I was watching this, and I just can't understand the politics of the war. How can this happen to children, to women, to schools, to hospitals, and how can half of Lebanon be destroyed? So I tried to find out, I researched, and I got nowhere. So finally, 3 weeks later, an appeal came from Christian Aid asking for a doctor with surgical skills to go out and help the war wounded. And I thought, maybe I can do this. I had to resign because nobody supported that kind of crackpot idea. So they said, career suicide, that's what they said, You know how competitive surgery is, where you are, you're really lucky and so on and so forth, and now you want to throw it away, and so I didn't listen, so I flew out with the Christian Aid team. And I landed up, of all things, in a Palestinian refugee camp. Now, a little bit about my background. I grew up as a Christian, and I was very, very pro-Israel because I taught the Old Testament in Sunday school. So it's a mixed up kind of ideology that I've got, or theology. So I couldn't believe it, but here I was, Palestinians equals Philistine equals David and Goliath, doesn't add up. But anyway, I learned that they're wonderful human beings who have lost their country in 1948 and was living in those refugee camps. 750,000. And it just pains me because how come that was never taught in our history book? And that's why I'm actually obsessed with telling the Palestinian story. even in TEDxTalks, I have to tell you. Yeah, because, you know, in 1982, they were just called terrorists. And there I was in the midst of them. The whole third generation growing up in the Palestinian refugee camps with no hope of returning back to the country, giving birth to children in exile, and yet being bombed. And why not a single note about them? So anyway, you got to work. So work, look after wounded, open the hospital orthopedic department, and all went reasonably well until 3 weeks into the exercise, there was a big massacre. I won't tell you the politics of the massacre because it's a long story. You haven't got that kind of time. 3,500 women, old men, and children were murdered. And that really challenged me because, you know, I spent 3 days and 3 nights with my team in a basement operating theatre, and on the last day, we were ordered out, leaving behind very ill patients, escorted down by machine gun, walking down the main street of the camp. And as I walked down, I saw groups of women and children and old men all rounded up. And my fear, that time I began to understand that these people might be killed. And as I walked down, a desperate mother tried to give me her baby boy. I took the child and I was thinking, what makes her think that I can carry the child to safety? What makes her think so? I'm under arrest too. But anyway, I took the child, but then it was ordered at machine gun point that she took back the child. And later on, I found out that both were killed. So memories of the massacre, memories of the homeless Palestinian, memories of what they have been subjected to haunted me. And so how? So what am I going to do? And I can tell you many more horrible stories. After 3 months of working there, when I came back, I decided that there's no way I can settle down to an ordinary life. I've got a day job, which is NHS, pay my salary, but I created for myself a night job with my friends. We started a small organization called Medical Aid for Palestinians. Very humble, but at least we can raise money and help them. And that was 31 years ago. It's still functioning. They've decided I'm too old, so I became patron, okay? So I'm patron now, okay? But the passion is still there. You still continue to help, all right? And I want to tell a story. I have to tell this for you, Imam. You know, when you work in a terrible situation where you see people die and so on, you come back to this life here, you just wonder what it's all about. But there's a meeting place of the night job and the day job. On one of my day job, I was in East London running a fracture clinic. A lady came in to me and she saw me, she said, "Oh no, not Miss Ang. I saw you on television helping those people in that place, you know, can't even name the name. They suffered so much. I can't take up your time." But then I looked at her, I said, "Look, a real problem to you is a real problem to me. It might be a small problem, but it's a real problem and we'll fix it." So I put my arms around her, I fixed it. Because in life, there's no such thing as big things and small things. We do a lot of small things and together it counts. Okay, the other thing I want to tell you, Sajita asked me, what now? 36 years political refugee, 31 years working as a night job for the Palestinians, and that I'll take to my grave. 2 years as a widow, my husband has died. So now what do I do? Apart from other things, this is what I do. Every morning I get up. Let me help one person, just one. Whether it's a patient, whether it's a beggar down the road, whether it's someone cross the road, or just to bring a smile to someone's face. That's good enough for me. Let me do that. And if we can do that every day of my life, it's such a blessing. And that's what you can do, and that's what I can do, okay? So I want to leave this with you. We will make big differences by making many small differences. And this is within our power to do. We don't need permission.